What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity buck Bumble. What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity buck Bumble.
Welcome to Remember 64, where this week we save the garden one mission at a time. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is David Petrangelo, and if I ever have to defend my garden from an evil swarm of bugs and bees, I know they mean business. Or should I say buzzness? Well, anyways, that's just a somewhat vague quip about the level 19 game this time around. That is Buck Bumble. A new guest will be joining the show momentarily to talk about the game, and I am oh so excited to have them on. But before that, just wanted to mention, as always, give us a rating on your podcast app of choice. Always much appreciated. Let us know what you think of the show as well. All those ratings, all those comments help us climb the charts and have more people find us. Find this great console and these awesome games. As well, if you have a buck or two, you can head on over to patreon.com/remember64show, where you can get all these episodes early, hear about what I and others have been playing outside of the N64, and help us pick what games and episodes will be coming up in the future as well. But, of course, as always, we're going to jump into the game. Let's bust out the history books, everyone.
I'm learning.
Buck Bumble is a 3D flying shooter that could be compared to the likes of Star Fox 64, I would say, in many ways. You don't move through levels in the same way you do in that game from A to Z, so to speak. You are zooming through, diving around, and defeating enemies. But what I found even more interesting, or maybe it's just a coincidence, but Buck Bumble was made by the same team who helped create the Super FX chip for Nintendo's Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Yes, that is the very chip that made the original Star Fox possible on that console, and a lot of technology going forward, as you're about to hear. Argonaut Games was founded in London, England in 1982, and if we skip ahead a few years to the late 80s and early 90s, they got their in with Nintendo as they showed off how they could defeat, or essentially hack into, the Game Boy's copyright protection mechanism. So yeah, cracking into the Game Boy impressed Nintendo. Jeremy Elliott, or as he was known as Jez Sands, founded the company and spearheaded the group to work with the Big N for years. It was he and other chip designers who proposed the true 3D possibilities of the SNES. Nintendo was so impressed through this process that they hired them to get that job done. They originally codenamed the chip Mathematical Argonaut Rotation I/O, or in short form, Mario. Now, at the time, the Super FX was so advanced and powerful, they joked that the Super Nintendo was just a box that could hold the chip, and that's all it needed to be. Funny enough, I mean, that's what a lot of people say about consoles these days. It's just a small version of a PC in a lot of ways. Well, why is all of this so important for Buck Bumble itself? The chip was one of the biggest steps forward in home console technology, no matter how you look at it. Argonaut Games may not be around anymore, but it may be one of the forgotten landmark companies in the history of console gaming. Now, fast forward to the development of the Ultra, or N64, in the mid-90s, and Argonaut Games and Ubisoft began working on the idea. It was in the winter of 1996 when just 3 coders were visualizing what a garden warfare and bug battling game could look like in a 3D space. Well, instead of the conventional spacecraft and lasers and rockets, yes, Star Fox, the team wanted to have more fun with what it could be and place Buck in the quote-unquote real world. Now, Buck Bumble got pretty good reception out there. It sold under 1 million copies in North America and a little bit less than that in Europe. But, you know, it wasn't a landmark type of title or release for Nintendo, so it did fairly well for the company and did fairly well for its release. But as you're about to hear, around this time, when it came out at the end of 1998, it's had some stiff competition. It did get some pretty good ratings, though. You'll see online if you look it up, a lot of reviews from the time, and even people that are reviewing it nowadays, years and years later, anywhere in the 7s and 8s out of 10s, which is pretty damn good, I would say. Now, I'm referring to the busy time of year in 1998. It's a perfect time to head into Nintendo Power Time. It's issue 114. Some tough competition on the eyeballs of November 1998. Not only is Ocarina of Time on the cover, it takes up a dozen pages. There's also Glover, Banjo-Kazooie, and special features on Star Wars Rogue Squadron and the Game Boy Color. I mean, you don't have any room for anything else, it seems. But the Buck Bumble pages do start with this gem of an intro. The only thing standing between the evil herd and the rest of the insectkind is a lone cyborg bee named Buck Bumble. Get ready to lock and load, because it's time to buzz through the 19 stages of intense aerial combat. It's time to be all that you can be. Yes, with 2 E's on both of those. As the mag did at this time, they also rated and reviewed games that were in the issue, and Buck Bumble received a pretty damn good 8.2 out of 10. In the satisfaction section, it reads, Ubisoft and Argonaut are to be congratulated on an excellent action game with fresh themes, look, and sound, as well as fun gameplay. And I think, everyone, that is a perfect chance for us to jump into talking about the game itself. I'm excited to bring in a guest. Let's talk about Buck Bumble.
Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bump to the bump to the bumper. Bump to the boot to the boot to the boot boot. Bump to the bass to the bass bass. Bump to the boot to the boot to the boot. Bump to the bass to the bass bass. Phenomenon 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 phenomenon. Ishe phenomenon phenomenon. Ishe mandi ula dem.
All right, it is that time, of course, once again on Remember 64, to bring in our special guest. I'm so excited. We've been talking about this, getting this episode up and getting this meet together and chat together for the last couple of months. And finally, everybody, finally it's happening. Podcast extraordinaire, Matt, aka Stormageddon, is here to talk about the N64 and Buck Bumble. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
It's awesome. It's awesome to have you on. I'm really loving all the stuff that you do. I've been on, very very briefly been on one of your sort of side quest episodes on Fun and Games. But before we dive into the 64 and the actual Buck Bumble itself, let's chat a little bit about yourself. Look, where can everyone find your stuff? I mean, where can't they find it? Actually, is probably the easier question, because you got so much awesome stuff going on.
So, well, thank you, first of all. It's I could run down the laundry list of all the things I do, but we'd be here all day. So djstormageddon.com is where you can find all the shows that I work on. Of course, what David was just referring to, Fun and Games, is my video game podcast. We recently launched a Patreon. Feel free to join. We'd love to have you. But it is a general video game discussion show that looks on the lighter and more positive side of gaming. We do talk about some harder topics, but for the most part, we try and keep it light and positive, because I don't know if you know this, Dave, about the video game frontier is that it's kind of negative, vitriolic a little bit.
I haven't. And in movies too, I feel like there's some sense of that in just pop culture. It's weird. Strange that you say that. Yeah. I think you're onto something. Yeah.
And so it's very important for Jeff and I to talk more about the positive stuff. And we've had some different developers, composers. We've had I almost said Brendan Urie, which is Panic at the Disco, different guy. We had Yuri Lowenthal twice, which was amazing. I can't even, the second time he asked to come back, which I will ride that until the day I die, because
do it.
Amazing. But we also, as you mentioned, do Side Quest, which was a side series that I come up with and launched because there's too much negativity about games. Most memorable was when the new Paper Mario was coming out for the Switch. People saw a screenshot and said, "Oh, this looks dumb." And I went, "Really? Are you brain dead? It's a picture." And I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about a game I love that I just finished. And then now here we are over 200 episodes later. I launched the series with Talk About Control, where I barely talk about what the game actually is, because Control is better the less you know. But it just kind of snowballed from there. We've had some incredible developers, creators, podcasters of all walks do. You did an episode. You are in the queue to do another that will be out at some point later this year. And so, like, those are like, that's the, if your listeners are really into video games, which I would assume they are, that might be the first thing they want to check out. And then the other video game related show I do is Reignite. As of when we're talking, it is evolving from a Mass Effect podcast into a Dragon Age podcast. We
Nice.
did all 3 games of the original trilogy before the Legendary Edition came out. And then we did Andromeda, which I had never played, but my co-host did. And it was my first time and I loved it. Has its problems, but I still enjoyed it. And now we are taking it to the next obvious step, which is to go into the world of Dragon Age, which will be a little more daunting. Those games, as good as they are, they also, their worst moments are worse. But ultimately, I like all those games, and I'm excited to dive in those characters as well. And then who knows from there? And then also I'm the freelance editor for the Game Informer show, which is like a dream come true. I love Alex Van Aken. I love all the folks over at Game Informer. I've been reading it since I was a kid, and so
same.
to be working as an editor for the show is great. I've been a guest on the show a bunch of times too, which is a lot of fun. And so that's like the broad strokes. If you want to find me while Twitter is still alive, DJ_Stormageddon is the best place to find me in most places. But otherwise, if you probably Google Matt aka Stormageddon, something of mine will come up and you can go from there.
Right. Amazing. And you're, I would say, an awesome follow as well. It's not all about video games. It's not all about your dog, but it's a mix of both. And that's exactly what it should be. And that's why we have platforms like that, right? That's what it's about. I love it. Sure. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
I got to post more about my dog because it's the best. It's the best, isn't it?
Dogs are the best. I'm glad to have one of my own. I grew up with one and I've wanted a puppy since I was a kid and since my dog passed. And so I'm so excited to have Otis. He's great. He's the best.
Amazing.
Otis, Hakelev Storm. Hakelev is Hebrew for the dog. My spouse thought it would be very funny, and it is.
That's great. I love it. All right, let's dive into the Nintendo 64. Before we hit record, you said this was a console when you were growing up that was on a wish list. It was something that you were just really, really wanting to get. Let's dive into it. What's your history with the Nintendo 64?
So it's funny. I've told this story many times on many podcasts. I did an episode on side quests about Mario 64 where I recanted this tale. But so the N64 came out the year I got bar mitzvahed. And I remember asking my parents for it. I was like, I really want this for my bar mitzvah. They're like, it comes out after the party. And I was like, that's okay. I'll wait.
It's worth the wait. I swear it's worth the wait.
And so, I was very excited, but we didn't pre-order it. This was in the early days of pre-ordering games. It wasn't a common thing. And at Toys R Us, they didn't even, like, now you go into Toys R Us, GameStop, wherever, there's the aisles of games. That's not how it was when I was a kid. It was like this back room with a counter, and you would go up to the counter and ask for the game or the console or whatever. And I remember seeing it was sold out everywhere, and I was really sad and upset. And I said to my dad, can we just try the local Toys R Us? Can we just give it a shot? I really want to see if they have one. And he's like, yeah, sure, of course. He humored me a lot as a kid. And so we go to the Toys R Us, and I remember going up to the guy behind the counter, and I said, hey, do you have any N64s? I really want to buy one. And he's like, I think they're sold out, but I'll go check the back. And sure enough, he came out with an N64. I don't know if this guy sold me some poor schmuck's reserve copy or what, but I got one.
That's their problem. That's their problem.
Right. And so I got that and Mario 64. And
amazing.
And what I always say about Mario 64 and why I did a side quest episode on it is Mario 64. I loved a lot of games before that. Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite games. Is my favorite game of all time. The Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Genesis era. There's a ton of stuff I love. But with Mario 64, it was the first time I played a game and felt like I got lost in a world besides some of the early RPGs. Like I looked at it and went, this is a world that I can move through, right? It's just the spatial awareness and all of that. And I spent so much time with Mario 64. It was also one of those first games I remember having like this electrifying buzz while playing the first couple times I played it. Other games that gave me that were Metroid Fusion and Mass Effect, like games that I was Arkham Asylum, games I was looking forward to so much that like I could barely contain myself. And the N64 quickly became a favorite console, mostly because I had to justify the purchase and the 4 controllers, but also because like I'm a Nintendo fanboy, and and I had a lot of games for it. I know you often ask on the show, did you have a couple games or did you buy a lot of games? It was a mix of both. Like most folks around our age, I think we relied a lot on
Yeah.
Blockbuster, but I
Yeah.
did buy a ton of games. I had Mario 64, I had GoldenEye, I had Mario Kart. I had a lot of the multiplayer games.
Yeah,
The
a lot, a
single
lot of the
player,
go-to multiplayers. I mean, that's a very common thread, though. I think and
yeah,
that's okay. I mean, that's what the console was for, I think,
yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
where it succeeded. So
It was also the first console where I really fell in love with Zelda. Like I had loved Link to the Past, but that was the only Zelda I'd really played and beat because notoriously the first two were impossible. And then when Zelda 64 came out, like it was given to me as a gift. I got the gold cartridge with a T-shirt, like it was a present from
nice.
one of my best friends, and so like it felt momentous in a way that previous Zelda games haven't, and that trend continue. The
Yeah,
Zelda games being one of the most important things I looked forward to on a new console, besides Metroid, but those were rarely at-home console games, at
yeah,
least
yeah.
in the early days, beyond Super Nintendo. So yeah, the N64 I think is one of the most important video game consoles for me, besides the Nintendo GameCube, probably.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think, I've said it multiple times and stuff, but like something about the 64, like, is it a perfect console? No. Is it a perfect controller? No. Does it matter? No, it really
No.
doesn't. And there's something about that perfect age where you're just, it's the mid to late 90s and it
Mhm.
just is right at that time. And I know for sure this was marketed towards us, but they knew what they were doing at that time, and I think they just knocked out of the park. Yes, there's a whole lot of technical things that we run into on most of the games that we've played so far, at least as of this recording, but like it's okay. Like it's okay,
Yeah.
and it's still fun. And I think that multiplayer is what it is, especially for this generation, the 64's generation and the one after, because of what this console was and what it was able to do. And I think that it's co-op coach co-op is not so much a thing anymore, and that's sad. But like, I think when we think of it, for me, I think of this console when it comes to that. Coach co-op and competitive stuff on the couch with friends and
Yeah.
family is the N64. It's not even necessarily the Xbox or the
Yeah.
360 or the PS2 or any of that. It's this console, and it's just, that's why it's so special. I think, to me, that's the big stuff. So playing something like Buck Bumble, for example, is
Yes.
not that, right?
Yes.
I mean, or it has a aspect of that in there, which I did not try. I did not try the multiplayer, but the single player and the one player mode and the story mode and all that stuff is not what I was just talking about. So you were very excited and you suggested to play Buck Bumble. I want to know why this game is so special to you then, and how you feel kind of going back to it now.
So Buck Bumble is an interesting animal. Well, he's not an animal; he's a bumblebee. But we'll get to that. Thank you for laughing at that very bad joke.
Oh, it was excellent. I love that. Right up my alley.
Buck Bumble was a rental game for me. I don't know that I ever owned it, but I it was one of those repeated rentals, so I could beat it. And like you would
Yeah,
pray
there's
that you
always
got
a
the
couple
same
of those,
copy.
right? Yeah.
And so I played it a lot, and I really loved it. I don't know that I ever owned it. And then I don't know. I think it was 7 years ago. I have the video here in a tab. Yeah, 7 years ago, in February of 2015, I discovered a little YouTube creator who's now a big YouTube creator named Antdude, who'd done famously a video on Buck Bumble, and I was like,
Ah,
"Oh, I remember that game." I watched the video and like. So something to know about me is I'm a music nerd. I used to host a music podcast that doesn't really exist anymore, and like I've always been the thing I probably talk about as much as video games is music and pop music. And
nice.
like the big bit in that YouTube video and what I remembered when watching it that I'd forgotten from my childhood is that it has one of the best opening theme songs in the history of video games. And this is not hyperbole.
It's really not. It's really not. You are 100% correct.
And so like I refell in love with the theme song. I found ways to play the game again and really
Yep.
loved it. And then I like befriended some folks in a few different video game communities who also were obsessed with that theme song and obsessed with this game. And it became mimetic, but I loved it and I still do. And so when you were asking me for games, but you're like, hey, probably not the higher profile stuff because we've covered a lot of that, like
Yep.
Crystal Shards, which is one of my favorite games on the N64. So I was like, all
Nice.
right, let's think outside the box. And then I remembered Buck Bumble. And I was like, oh, we have to talk about this.
Perfect. Honestly, like perfect pick. That's awesome. Oh my God. Like, okay, so for me, like, in comparison, I maybe touched this game once or twice previously when I was a kid, like, because it really was just all about multiplayer, unless it was Zelda or Mario, unless it was those very obvious single player games, or Kirby, for example. I love that game. Always, I played through that so many times growing up, and I owned it. I think honestly, like Buck Bumble, I knew what it was, but I never really had any attachment to it. And I turned it on, and I was immediately like, what is this music? And why have I not heard this until now? Where has this been for the last 25 years? I love this. And I was just in right away, just off of that. So I had a great time with this game. I had a really, really good time with it. I think it does a pretty good job of early 3D controls and flying. Just like anything else of this time, it's not perfect, but I don't think that it necessarily, like, quote unquote, fails in any way either. Like, I think it is very, very good. I think the camera is at the right distance from your character, which always
Mhm.
helps. I think early games that had 3D camera is always a struggle, and honestly was probably a struggle for like a decade, I would
Yeah.
say. And no, you're not necessarily moving the camera, but it you can see everything, you can feel where you're going, you have a good sense of space and all that. That's important, especially in early days of 3D. So, um, like, I would say, like, thank God that we played this, because this is great. I had such a good time with it. Um, did is there something in particular that sort of stuck out this time around that you're like, oh, I didn't realize this, or oh, I remember loving this, and thank God it's still there. Is there anything like that sticks out to you?
I mean, I think the big thing besides the theme music is the weapons. I mean, I remember, like, I'm a shotgun lover in shooters, just
Nice.
flat out. If there is
Yeah.
a shotgun, that is my weapon of choice. Mostly because shotguns require less aiming and more just a direction, and the spread
just
fire hits.
just somewhere in front of you. Yeah.
Right. My my
General
my
direction.
my aim is not my strength in shooters, and so but like I forgot how like really interesting some of the weapons were, like the
Yes.
homing Tesla laser and the stun
Yep.
gun and all that stuff. And so I love the weapons, and then I love the story. It's like it should be funnier than it is. I feel almost like it is
Mm,
very much played straight. And I think that's
yeah.
what makes it kind of really entertaining, is like you are just this super cyborg bee, and you have to stop these insects that acquired this technology which made them like super insects, and you have to defeat them. And it's just that's it. That's go destroy things.
That's it. Here,
Um
do this. Go to this. Go to mission 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. But simple, but in a good way, I would say.
Yeah, and like the stages, they some of them were more annoying than I remembered, but most of them were pretty
Mm,
straightforward. Like
yeah.
this game doesn't break any barriers. It doesn't like it didn't revolutionize anything. It's also now I'm realizing the earliest Ubisoft game I've ever played, because they published this. It was Argonaut
Yes.
Software and Ubisoft. I always thought that Assassin's Creed was the first Ubisoft game I played, or Prince of Persia, but no, it was actually this.
Actually, I
Um,
would have thought that it was Prince of Persia as well, and then I saw this, and I was like, oh, I guess, yeah, for me this could be it too. It could be it. Yeah.
And so, yeah, but I think that ultimately I'm surprised how well it holds up. There are a lot of N64 games that I've gone back to that I love that are harder to play. Like
Hmm.
I was playing Banjo Kazooie recently on the Xbox Cloud Gaming on my phone, and it works well, and it's pretty responsive. But like I think there are just things I expect I can do with the analog stick, that it's just it's improved because it's been ported to other systems, but like it's still not as fluid as like I expected to be. Or even going back to Mario 64, one of my favorite games of all time. Like I love playing it, but like the Switch port, which ideally isn't great to begin with, doesn't like map the C buttons as like the other analog stick. They
Oh, weird.
it sort of does, and you can like tap it to like turn the camera, but
Yeah.
it just does. Like they could have easily added, I think, an analog kind of look control to that. It would have been a
Sure.
simple addition, but they didn't do that. And so like with Buck Bumble, replaying it in a completely and totally legal manner that I did for this episode, um the controls were okay, but they just definitely like they're not as smooth as I remember. And so, but it was
Yeah.
still totally playable and a lot of fun. And I think the absurdity of the game is what carries me through on this. Like it's just you're a cyborg bee. What else do you want?
Right.
That's it. Go. You know.
And you know what? Honestly, like, I think even if you weren't a cyborg bee and you were just a bee or a
Yeah.
wasp or a fly or whatever that just had guns and glasses and sneakers and like, just sort of go for that like kids cartoon aesthetic and just make
Mhm.
everything real. I mean, there's turrets and stuff, so I guess you have to have some sort of, you have to escape reality in some way. And obviously you're
Yeah.
carrying these weapons, but like if it was just essentially a cartoon put onto the screen in 3D and you just control that's all you need really.
Yeah.
Right. But the fact that he's a cool cyborg with glasses and can zip around and all that kind of stuff. I thought that, yeah, you mentioned actually the levels, some of them, I think most of them are totally fine.
Yeah.
They totally work. I think it took me a few tries every once in a while to be like, oh, this is where I have to go and this is how I get there. Um, you know, I do actually was actually quite impressed with quite a few of them were pretty big, the
Yeah.
stages. They're a lot bigger than I thought. Like there'd be one section where you'd start off and you have to take out a few turrets and there's a couple of wasps kind of buzzing around you and stuff and you have to pick up a key or some other item and then
Yeah.
a little, hole opens up on the end, which I don't know what that is, if it's just like I don't know. It's a door sometimes, or sometimes it's just something else you have to go through. And then you go in, and then it's another area that's just as big or bigger. And then you go to another one, and then you have to backtrack. And like all of that stuff I did not expect. I honestly expected this game to be A to B and, take out enemies, get to the end, and onto the next mission. But they got a little bit more interesting with things. And I think that's tough to do when you have so limited, like literally limited technical capacity on these cartridges.
Yeah.
And
I
they
mean,
pulled it off and it doesn't feel like it's less than and they jammed a bunch of stuff in just because they thought they needed to.
yeah.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And like it reminds me of like the all range mode in Star Fox 64, another favorite
Yes,
of mine.
yes.
And like, but it's that all the time. And like a lot of people say, "Oh, I wish all of Star Fox was like all range mode." I liked being able to do all range mode and flying around the arenas, but I think being on the rails is the better part of Star Fox.
I agree. I
I
agree.
like the reason I think a lot of more recent Star Fox games haven't worked is because they're trying to be too experimental with it. I think
Hmm.
Star Fox, like you can iterate and evolve, but they also don't want to drift too far from what it was. They don't want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like you have to go further. I think they're kind of in this liminal space. But anyway, like Buck Bumble takes the kind of all range mode thing, and I don't actually remember which of these came first, but it's that kind of gameplay, but with bigger arenas and more stuff going on. And I think it adds for a more fun and frenetic environment.
Yeah.
And like you said, like it's not like the controls are fine. They're for their N64 controls. I think if this ever got a remake, first of all, I don't know that I'd want to remake just because I think the modern game aesthetics might hurt it. But I
Hmm.
think the controls are the only thing I think that is a pain point, and they're not even a huge one. They're just like
They're
they
really
are.
not.
They're fine, but they're not as tight as some of the other first party Nintendo stuff. But they're still pretty good.
Yeah, I think really the only thing to me the only thing that felt like sometimes a struggle is some of the enemies are so small, just like you
Yeah,
are, because you
yeah,
are a fly or a wasp or whatever the enemy is. It's hard sometimes to really perfectly aim at that enemy because they're moving pretty fast and so are you.
yeah,
Like the game is not slow. It's not really holding your hand to be like, okay, slow down. You have that option. You can sort of fly in one spot, which I actually did a decent amount until I realized, oh, I can just get hammered so fast and just get downed. It's every once in a while the enemies they're a little too hard to catch up to or a little too
yeah,
small, and the joystick is only so accurate. You can only do so much with it because it moves the camera as well
yeah,
as the so there's that. But again, like you said, it doesn't break your enjoyment of the game. I don't think. Every once in a while
no,
I got frustrated, I guess, the
yeah.
odd time, but not enough that I was like, well, I'm not playing this game anymore. Like, forget it. Like, why did Matt even recommend this? This is, oh, geez, I can't believe I'm going through this. It was almost the complete opposite. Like I was
Yeah,
determined to start again and do the mission again. And, and I also think that like, as frustrated as I could have been every once in a while, even if I went to the next level with next mission with like less health or whatever, I knew I was going to experience something different.
yeah,
And I think like every stage, every mission, you have a different layout and you have different enemies too, because like every few stages, you have a new enemy that you have to try and figure out how to defeat
Yep.
in a new way with a new weapon potentially. Like every weapon is more effective against a certain type of enemy, and I love that they did that. Like
Yeah.
there's just as many enemies variety as there are weapons, and that's great. I think that's they kicked butt with that part, I think.
Yeah, I think the diversity of enemies was fun. It kept things interesting, and ultimately the game is not very long. Like it's not very narrative intensive. It's you're on a mission to defeat these bugs and save the world, and that's kind of the
Yeah.
gist.
Beginning
Which
of
is
each
what
mission, you get a little text at the bottom, and it's like go get them, Buck. You got this.
yeah,
This facility we found, and oh, they're attacking us, and oh, now you're in enemy territory. Okay, that's fine, but that's all you need, really.
yeah. Is this a game I'm going to back to all the time for its deep story? No, not at
No.
all. But whenever I play it, I do enjoy it. It's
Yeah,
just it's
absolutely.
just one of those games that is just kind of all funky fun
Yeah,
and not so much on the like. I love Banjo-Kazooie, I love Donkey Kong 64, I love Conker's Bad Fur Day, but all of those games are so much longer and require so much more of your time
yes,
that I
yes,
rarely return to them except to like play around and mess around in the space
yeah,
or to hear the Great Mighty Pooh sing, because that's
yeah.
one of the best, the other best songs on the N64. Um, but like Buck Bumble is one of those games that I'm never disappointed when I return to it and play a bunch of stages, and like often will find myself, if I return to it, to see through to as close to the end as I can get, because it's just the pace is really fast and
Yeah.
really engaging.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, at first I was like, okay, I get the pace of the game. I get the gist of what I need to do here. Okay, I have like, yeah, at this point I maybe like 3 or 4 weapons at the most. This is early in the game, probably 4 or 5 levels in or 4 stages in, and then I realized, wow, this is not that easy. It's actually fairly difficult at times.
Yeah,
Part of it might be the controls. The
yeah,
odd time could be because of that, but there's some enemies I can't remember. I don't know. I didn't have like the manual in front of me or anything like that when I was playing it. But there's some enemies that are like diving at you. Plus they have projectiles that they're shooting at you. But like
yeah,
it's not like they go and hit you and explode. They hit you, they move on, and then they come back and try and you're dodging around. You're moving around. You're trying to take them out, and it's just not that easy sometimes. I'm like I feel like I'm being literally being swarmed by other bees.
how about that?
Yeah, who would have thought, right? And I thought that was great. I don't know if that particular feeling is what they were going for, but I think it has. If you're a seasoned enough um, shooter player or have played Star Fox 64 a decent amount or have experience playing games like this with a 64 controller or something similar, then I think you'll be okay. But I don't think it's any walk in the park either.
No,
I found that the only like main sticking point that I was like, why didn't they do this more? Was I don't think there's enough health pickups in it. I
no,
found I found those are like hard to find. They're almost like rare collectibles in other games. I'm like, they should be a little bit more forgiving with that,
sure.
but otherwise, I just had a good time taking down all these different enemies. I thought it was great. It was
I'm so
awesome.
glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Did you have
I,
like a favorite? Do you have a favorite or most hated enemy?
I mean, I like the queen fight at the very end of the game.
So do I.
I
Yeah,
think it's a lot of fun, and like you think she's defeated and then has a second phase. Love
yeah,
a good second phase, especially when you're like, "Oh, I'm finally done." And then, "Oh
yeah,
no."
yeah,
Um
yeah.
I mean, I hated the ladybugs, especially
Oh,
the armored ones. Just
yeah,
annoying. Not hard particularly, just annoying. And the smaller the enemy, the more I hated them too. Like
yeah. I
as
think
I said,
that's
my aim was not great, and so like the hard like the smaller targets are much harder to hit, and it's just
yeah.
like those kind of drove me crazy more than anything else.
Yeah, I think they were. I don't know if they're like supposed to be considered yellow jackets or fireflies or something like that, but they're really really small. So
Uh-huh.
similar thing, but they literally just kamikaze into you and they just like fly and like 5 of them come at you at once. I'm like,
Yeah.
go away, God, I can't do this. And like they're so hard to shoot that you almost like have to let them fly into each other, or you have to get
Yeah.
them bunched up and then like use. I can't remember the name of the weapon that has all the electrical shocks around it.
Oh, I know
Um,
which one you're talking
yeah,
about.
it
Yeah.
shoots out essentially it's like Thor throwing his hammer, and then all
Yeah.
this electrical currents come out from it, and it just zaps everything around it, and it takes out these like 12 enemies at once. I'm like, Oh, okay. Thank God I don't have to deal with them anymore.
Yeah.
Those were the ones that pissed me off the most. But again, all of that happens, but it's still satisfying when you defeat them, you
Yeah.
know? Whether you're cheesing the system or whether you're doing it the quote unquote the way they want you to, which I don't know that there is really a way they want you to do anything in this, because they leave it kind of up to you,
Yeah.
which is fun. That's part of like the open world, open arena aspect of it. And I think that's great for a really early 3D flying shooting game. That was awesome. I was quite impressed with that.
Yeah, it could have been much worse, especially since there are plenty of other games from this era and the
Yeah.
PlayStation era that have not aged as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be more than a few. I haven't really gone back to since I started the show and just before it. I haven't gone back to a whole lot of shooters, and
Yeah.
I'm honestly I'm scared to. I'm honestly scared. I'm scared to because I played Turok back in the summer again for the first time, and the way that controls is so odd. It's just
Yeah.
nothing you're used to nowadays because you don't even use the joystick, and I'm just like,
Nope.
what is happening in this game right now? Like, I get what they're going for because there was only one joystick and they wanted to do the look and first person and stuff, and somehow this one still works. And I think it's aged really well. And if anything has aged great about this game, I think it's the aesthetic. I think it looks great.
Yeah.
But it's that music, man. I keep coming back to just the music in general, but especially that theme song. I can't not understand, but I don't know how people don't like appreciate this as much somehow. Like, how is this not talked about every day? It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I believe the composer's name is Justin Verona,
Yeah, that's what
something like that.
Yeah, that's what I have
I
in front of
probably
me too.
butchered the
Yeah.
last name, but yeah, has done a ton of work and but like the whole, and he did not only the theme song, but he did the score for the whole game. And
The
I
whole
think it
thing.
has, the soundtrack is really great. Like,
Yeah.
nothing stands out in the same way that, like, the Grant Kirkhope stuff and all of that, but like that also Grant Kirkhope I've been listening to for so long that, like, I think his tracks are just as memorable because I went out of my way to listen to them. But like,
Right.
going back into this game, like every stage I got to was like, oh yeah, I love this track. This song rules. Like, and the sound design also was incredible in Buck
Yeah,
Bumble. From
actually,
the
yes, that's a
guns
good
to
point. Yeah.
the enemies, all of that. Like, yeah.
Oh, when you shoot the enemies down and it sounds like ships are coming down, like,
Yeah. Oh, it's the
I
best.
love that touch. That touch, it makes it more satisfying. It's just like it sounds like an old like World War One black and white video that you watched in school. Like, that's what
Yeah.
it sounds like. Or ones that they recreate in movies as like a, and then it would
Yeah.
crash behind you. And I was playing this with headphones on, and I could tell which way the enemies were coming from and everything, which I didn't expect. I thought, it's just, I know it's stereo sound or whatever. I just expected, okay, there's enemies around me. I'm going to hear some buzzing. But like, I would shoot someone down and it would go and come across my headphones and down. And I was just like, oh, I'm like in this, man. I am Buck Bumble right now. Like, it was great. It was so good.
It's great. Yeah, I love the effects in this. Definitely shows love and care for, like, not just the game, but like the genre fiction it's imitating.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
Yeah. And they really like, there's only so much they can build within the limited capacity of these cartridges and the console and stuff. But for the most part, the levels have, there's a couple shovels here and there. You see some plants and some water and all that kind of stuff. So like, it still feels like you're kind of like in a backyard. I kept, I was trying to think of, as I was playing it, I was trying to come up with like a sort of, I don't want to go as far as funny, but like a title for every episode that isn't just the title of the game. And like, this feels like it's garden warfare. That's what it feels like. It's great.
Yeah.
And I just, and I'm just like, that's what this is. And they really tried to make that true. And I think it's great. They, like you said, I think there's love and care in this. And I think they didn't chintz out on any of the details. And I think they kick butt. So I want to say, sir, thank you for suggesting this game, honestly.
My pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed it so much. It's always fun when you recommend a thing or suggest a thing for a podcast or for just a friend to play and they like it. So I'm happy that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, the most excited I have been and am going to be on this is a game that I have very little experience or no experience of. Whether it ends up being
Right.
a banger or not, either way, that's what I'd look forward to the most. And this is under the as the kids say, the banger category.
Amazing.
Yeah. So this is good. This is shooting up the top of my list so far of these games that we've played thus far. So so thanks again for coming on the show, Matt. Again, just briefly, where can everyone find your amazing stuff online? And hard to keep track of all of it because there's so much, but what do we got out there that we can listen to?
Sure. So again, you can go to djstormageddon.com to find everything that I'm working on. The big show that I want to plug is Fun and Games, which you can find on every podcast platform, and Reignite as well, because they are both video game related. But I do a TV and movie podcast called Screen Snark. I do a interview series called CPOV Autographs. All of these are shows that I host and or help produce. And then I edit a bunch of different shows as well. If you go to certainpov.com, it's a podcast network that I'm a part of that has a ton of different nerdy shows that are all really great and worth checking out. And then if you want to find me, I'm DJ_Stormageddon in like 95% of the social media. So as long as Twitter's still around tomorrow, you can find me there. That's where I'm most active.
Exactly. It's always a little like asterisk that we have to put beside it nowadays. So
yeah,
we're currently in 2023. It's just part of the discussion now. So
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Matt, I really appreciate it. Down the line, we will have you back on the show and we will play another banger of a game, I'm sure. And until that time, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon. Yes, thank you once again for joining me on level 20 of Remember 64. I can't believe we've made it this far in this amount of time. I'm really happy that we've explored this many games, this many opportunities, and Buck Bumble is now towards the top of the list of the games that we've played, at least thus far, in our recordings in the history of Remember 64. Now, if you want to continue to follow us, you can always find us online at Remember 64 Show. We have ourselves on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Those are the main places that you can find us as well. Give us a rating on your podcast app of choice, of course. That always helps us be seen and heard by other people. Also, tell your friends and family. Why not? And of course, as I mentioned on top of the show, Remember 64 Show on Patreon as well, where you can get all the episodes early and hear about other things that we are playing, while also having some votes on what games we could be playing next and really should be playing next. I want you to let us know what you want to hear of coming down the pipe as well. So thank you very much again for listening to the show, and we will see you next time on Remember 64. And as always, stay pixelated, my friends.